You walk into work and you never know what's going to hit you, right? Every single opportunity, every single question, every single meeting, every single thing that you're doing, the way you respond, it's just a vote for how you want to grow.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. I'm excited for y'all to hear our next guest. Mary Elizabeth Cox started her first job in sports with the Atlanta Braves 6 years ago, and she has not looked back. What I think y'all will love about Mary Elizabeth's journey is how she recognized that her strengths aligned with her passions and how she was able to turn all of that into a role at the Braves. Mary Elizabeth, who is a project manager, shared her incredible journey and talks to us about how she found a career niche in project management, how she relied on her team to understand problems and learn how to prioritize, why she relies on relationships to advance organizational priorities, how she influences within her organization, and what she did to build a culture of collaboration during COVID. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. Mary Elizabeth, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you.
I'm so excited. This is going to be so fun. Okay, before we get into your career, which I was doing some homework and I've known you for, a long time. I don't know when we first met, but it was early in your career.
It was for sure. A couple years into my career, I believe.
Yeah, much later in my career, but early in your career. So take us back and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
I can't even recall a time where I fell in love with sports. Sports have been just embedded in my life and in my family for as long as I can remember. I was one of the sisters of a brother with travel ball. My dad coached. So literally our childhood was traveling all over the state of Florida and going to tournaments and watching baseball games. So spent a lot of time doing homework and studying in the bleachers, sitting on the bleachers, scoring baseball with my grandpa. Some of my favorite childhood memories. Huge Auburn Tiger family. So grew up going to every single football game, going to tailgates with the family, and just really have been around sports my entire life. It's part of who we are as a family.
So Auburn, diehard, I'm assuming,
yes.
right?
Yes.
True fanatic. And I know your boss is Georgia, true fanatic. How does that work out?
Yeah. So actually, my husband is a graduate of the University of Georgia too. So we have one hard weekend out of the year. This year it was not a hard weekend because I had some realistic expectations, but we make it work. It's one weekend out of the year. But Auburn usually takes it for basketball, baseball. We have a lot of other sports that I get to count on. So
okay, there you go. There you go. So yeah, I was totally just thinking football, and I was thinking that. But if you even have that competitiveness in your own house with your husband, I can't even imagine that. I know there's a lot of houses divided out there. That's insane.
It is. I was very happy for him last year. They had a great year, obviously. I was happy on behalf of our family. If it's not going to be my team, I would like it to be my husband's team, other than that one weekend out of the year.
I like that. That's a nice way to think about it.
Yes.
You are very
realistic expectations, though, over here. Did not have the best hopes for this year. So you just have to set your expectations and know what you're going into.
There you go. You sound like my husband. So you started with the Braves straight out of college. Is that right?
Yes, I had one like brief job here in Atlanta. And then while I was living in Atlanta, someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know you're in Atlanta. You just started a new job, but this team, the guest services team at the time at Turner Field is looking for someone and you would really be a good culture fit. I would encourage you just to go through the interview process, even if it's just to network, make some connections. You would really like the team and their service philosophy and their mentality around staffing and how they staff the ballpark and treat their teams." So went into it very open-minded, sent in an application, ended up meeting with the entire team and kind of fell in love with the team and all that they do, and ended up leaving my job to come over here.
Wow. Okay. So your friend or coworker told you about this job and they knew it aligned. It sounded like they knew it aligned with all your values. Did I get that right?
I actually got it from someone at Auburn University from the hospitality program where I graduated. That's how I heard about the job and talked to some people there. So it came actually from the program where I spent so many years of my life dedicated to, and just that team knew what I was passionate about and they felt like it really aligned with this role. So gave it a shot and it ended up working out really well.
Okay. So you went to school for hospitality. Your college, someone there ended up calling you because they knew that it aligned. How did they know? I know, and I asked this question because it seems like a simple answer, but a lot of people, like regardless of age, right, whether they're in college or later in life, they just are like sometimes all over the place about what they want to do. And they have a lot of stuff going on in their head. And then to articulate to somebody isn't always as easy as one would think. So like how, thinking back, which it wasn't too long ago for you, but like thinking back, how did they know that job aligned with your capabilities, your values? Because they kept saying you'd be a great culture fit. That's a huge thing to say to somebody.
To me, it wasn't sports. I was not sold on sports. I was never trying to find a job in sports. For me, it was finding a job in hospitality where I'd be working around people. That's what I knew I wanted to do. And I was really passionate about the service element and taking an ordinary experience and making it something special. Whether that was, I worked in hotels, I've interned in weddings, I had a different array of hospitality experience, but that's what I was passionate about. And then I was also passionate about the other side of hospitality and how you staff a hotel, how you staff a ballpark, and how you recognize those people, and how important it is to find the right people to do that job and to recognize them to that, to train them to that. And then that just helps build your culture, helps build your experience for all of those guests. So that was what I was so passionate about. It was not sports. It was not the Atlanta Braves for me. I was passionate about just making an experience for people.
Your passion, your values, what was important to you, what mattered most to you was really about how you impacted others, right? And whatever experience that may be. So it's like you kind of were like, okay, here are the things that are important to me. Now let me find a job that fits that. Instead of saying, I need to be in sports, I'll step into ticketing to get in the front door. Or I want to be at a hotel, I'll step into, I'll be a, front desk worker, right?
Yeah,
like you didn't pigeonhole yourself into like, let me just get in. You were more like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what's important to me. This is what matters most. I'm going to take that and what I have to offer to find my job. Is that accurate to say?
Absolutely. And I think in college a lot, and Auburn has a phenomenal hospitality program. And I'm so thankful for what I learned there. And that really shifted my mentality on service and what it means to provide a great experience. We talked a lot about the warm body syndrome in college. And yes, you need a lot of people to run hotels, to run ballparks. But if you have someone who's extraordinary and cares about the guest, that goes 10 times further than just having people who are there to just go through the actions of the job. And so finding the right people, we talked a lot about that in college. And so that was something that was built into my service standard, if you will, when I was looking to hire people and looking to build a team of who will make the best experience for our guest.
Tell everybody what your first job was with the Braves and then what you do now.
My first job with the Atlanta Braves was our guest services coordinator. So that was back at Turner Field before we moved to a new ballpark. We had a team of 70 staff, game day staff, seasonal employees who owned the guest experience around the ballpark through various areas. I was our guest services booths, our clubs and suites, and then just rotational team in wheelchairs. So that was literally just people around the ballpark in key traffic areas to help make the experience better, whether that was someone looks lost. Hey, there's a little child who they look really excited. Let's start engaging with mom and dad and say, hey, is this their first visit? And let's make an experience. So we had a team dedicated just to that at Turner Field. When we moved into the new ballpark, our guest services team grew from those 70 game day staff across the ballpark to a team of over 400, including all ushers and gate staff, so your ticket takers at the gates. That was something that I was over on the side of ushers and ticket takers. So within 6 months of starting a new job, we then moved to a new ballpark and I had to learn a whole different area of the operation.
Wow.
So it was a challenge, but such an incredible honor because we were able to literally make this experience what we wanted. We were able to write the book and write the script for how guests were entering and being treated at Truist Park. So after that, what I learned in that role was managing a huge or large group of staff. I just started finding a passion for making some of the administrative process more efficient, whether that's payroll, scheduling, communication. So I started building processes around that part of my job. That was more administrative side of managing, 400 plus staff. That was when I started really learning, hey, I love taking something, figuring out how to make it more efficient. And that's when I started really diving into the process side of my brain.
Okay. So this was while you were the coordinator, you really started to hone in on what you really liked to do and were good at it. Right. I'm going to make the assumption that you were really good at it.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I did enjoy it. It was just out of necessity to make a process better. So that became a passion of mine. As my role continued to shift, the next year I was moved to a different area of our guest services bucket and I started specializing in our premium areas. And that's when I really felt like this is my bread and butter. I'm so passionate about this. I can help make this experience the best it can be for these guests coming into our clubs and suites. We have 4,000 premium seats at Truist Park, so it is a huge part of our game day experience, whether that's suites or clubs or variety. That team was my next responsibility and my next challenge, if you will, in my career. So really just taking that experience and making it was already phenomenal. We already did a great job, but how do we continue to elevate that experience? How do we make sure the right staff are in place? How are they empowered to do their job better? What programs can we put in place for staff to just have resources at their fingertips to make that experience better? What's the right structure from a supervisor leadership standpoint so that people are empowered to just make decisions or have the resources they need closer by? So no one's waiting on me to take care of 4,000 people.
Yes.
I can only take care of so many people at a game. I can only come into contact with so many people, but we can hire the best of the best to run those clubs. And then they can impact those 4,000 people very easily.
Yes. Okay. So coming in as coordinator, then you had a couple of different promotions, but now you're the project manager, correct? For guest operations and strategy. Is that correct?
For our operations team now.
So that, that's big. That's bigger than that group of 4,000 in premium. That's bigger than the 70 you started out with. That's operations and strategies for the guests. That's a whole ballpark, right?
It is. So in 2019, when I was still working on premium, I had the opportunity to work very closely with my boss now, Hannah Basinger, who was at the time our VP of guest ops and strategy. She previously had been our premium consultant when we opened the ballpark. So premium was definitely a niche of hers. And when she came back in a full-time role as our vice president of guest ops and strategy, she started working with me on the premium side of things. So being able to take certain issues we were having in premium, whether that was, hey, we have a lot of very tactical issues at the time. Here's like little things we need to tweak on the service, on the game day experience. So she actually handed those mini projects off to me at the time in my role in guest services. And I was able to start working directly with our premium sales and service team, with our food and beverage team to solve for those problems. So that's how I got into project management, if you will, within our organization. So when Hannah, so I did that for a season. And when Hannah saw a need of this type of work in larger areas of her organization, her and I started having some organic conversations. It was something I was really interested in. I felt like at that time, I would love to contribute more to the project side of things and continue enhancing things. But then I also had a huge operational duty. I had a team to run, I had operations to run, I had administrative tasks that come with running a team. So I felt like I couldn't give both 100%.
Sure.
I did feel like where my career was going and the next step for me would be more of that project work. So we started having some good organic conversations. And in 2020, she was able to open up a position on her team as a project manager. So I applied for that role and went through the process with her and started the week before our world shut down for COVID.
It's crazy that that's going to be like a part of our story. Like, and then this happens. I got this and this happened. I mean, it's so crazy that happened, but I won't take everybody through that because we all went through that together. So backing up, you started to find your niche. And if I heard you correctly, you would find a problem, stumble across a problem, right? Yeah. Let's say you raised a flag, like here's a problem we have. And then you would come up with potential solutions and then present it to your boss, Hannah. Did I get that right?
It wasn't always me finding the problems too. It was a lot of what are our service reps saying who are talking to these clients every single day, who are asking them to renew and asking them to spend more money with us? What are the key problems that they're having in their experience? What are our guests directly saying and complaining about? So it's taking all of that and sorting through what is our true root issue? What are actual issues that we have here and solving for those? And also understanding we can get 100 complaints on one game day. We've all had those nights. How do you sort through what are our true issues? What's kind of an outlier because maybe we had one specific kitchen issue that was specific to that night. Okay, what are our main problems? And then what are the ones that are going to really move the needle the most? And then you start prioritizing that way of, all right, this is going to be it might not be the highest impact, but it'll be the first thing that's a quick win for our guest. Then the next thing might be a high impact for all of our guests. So you start prioritizing projects. And then I worked directly with the folks who can help make those things happen, whether that's food and beverage or food and beverage partner or our service team or our operations team, right? Because that was the team I was directly overseeing. So a lot of that I was able to execute on my own.
Okay. You said the magic word, like talking to others to help solve the problem, right? Because a lot of times in these service roles, and I get to speak from experience here, but a lot of times in these service roles, it's not your problem or you didn't do it, but it is your problem, right? Like it's something that you have to, what is that Disney saying that they always say? Oh, I know. It's not your fault, but it is your problem, right?
Yes.
And so that falls into your lap a lot. And so how did you navigate, and maybe I'm projecting here, but how did you navigate the internal politics when it came to working with, let's say, third-party vendors or a different department? And I know that that's definitely an obstacle that people in the customer service field, regardless of sports, run into. So love to hear like how you handled that and like what advice you give to others.
We could speak literally all day on this one topic. Half of our jobs is navigating the internal politics and knowing what's the right way to do things. And I think that comes with time too, and knowing who people are and how to work with people. For me, and this might be our culture, this is not here's how to do it by any means. This is what works for me and what works for the culture I work in. We are a relationship-driven organization. We are all about people here. And that to me, and it's amazing. I know we just briefly touched on COVID, but the way people show up when we need each other, that's what we do here. So a lot of it is really building relationships with those people and starting from like, hey, we are all on the same team. We all want to make this better. So relationships are critical. And then I think the next most critical piece, specifically talking about the scope of some of these premium issues, was aligning everyone on a goal. So sometimes we just start getting in the motion. There's 81 games, then we have postseason, then concerts, and then all of these non-game day events. There's so much going on that we all just start working in our silos and we're just checking the next thing off. So being able to identify, communicate, and then constantly point back to what is our goal of this project? What is our goal of this group? What is our goal of this program? What is our goal of this experience? And then pointing people back to it. You can't do the work up front and say, okay, this is what we're going to do this year, and then never stick to it. So I think that's a big piece of it for me, is just we've all stacked hands. We're all agreed upon that this is the priority, whether that's a renewal goal, and here are the things that are tied to it. That's a really easy way. In premium, we have renewal goals every single year. So we all agree upon that. We decide what we need to do in our own areas to achieve that goal. But we come back to it. Every single time we're talking about problems, we come back to our goal.
So I have this vision of you all stacking hands. I don't know why. And it's like making me giggle. Like I'm like a child sometimes.
Yeah.
So, okay. I could totally see, I'm a visual person. So I could see that stacking hands and like, this is our goal. And you don't do that in March, right before the season starts, and then revisit it again in October or God willing, November. Right. So what, God willing, or the team, whatever. So I'm getting religious on this podcast. How do you bring it up and holds people accountable when they don't report to you?
Yeah, that's part of being in a functional organization like ours. You don't have any direct control over that, right? And I think it really, that I'm going to come back to the relationship part. I have good enough relationships now with everyone I work with because I've worked so hard to make those relationships happen. And if I'm working with someone new in a project, I'm going to also make that one of my goals, working alongside of them as a project manager. Of how do I get to also, we have things to do, but how do I also get to know this person and let them know I'm here to support them? But that is part of it. I can go to someone and say, hey, I really need you to come back to this, or I really need you to help me with this. What can I do to help? That's part of my role as a project manager, is if there are impediments and roadblocks that they might be having difficulty with someone else or someone else's operation, I can help facilitate that. So I'm always here to be a team player and to do what I can to help them succeed. But I'm always going to be the person to pull someone aside when it's time to have that conversation and say, what can I do to help you? We all agreed upon this, but it comes back to like, we have a foundational relationship that we're standing on and we all have common respect for each other. I have a goal. We all agreed upon that. And I can always point back to that.
Yes. Yeah. I love that strategy. Were you ever nervous when you first sort of were put into this role?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll also say I started this role on a Monday. The office shut on a Friday. We've never had a project manager before in our organization, aside from our construction project manager, who is a very specific role. People know what that person is doing.
Yeah, there's like a beginning and ends, like, right?
Yes,
like, yeah,
for sure, right? And so to then try and build a culture of collaboration and communication around projects when everyone's fully remote for the first time ever. We've never been a remote work from home organization. So that was definitely a challenge of mine. I'm really lucky that I have an incredible leader in Hannah, and we were able to sit and talk about, hey, what can we do? How can we approach this one specific situation? We're all working from home now. We're all using technology in a different way. How do we really attack trying to bring this culture that we're of project management to our organization? So it was 100% a challenge from the get-go, just by not having the ability to walk up to someone and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, let's talk and have an organic conversation.
Sure.
It was more formal to have to set up time with someone, right? And to be on a screen with someone or to call someone. It's not like you can pop by and just have those casual conversations anymore. So that was definitely a challenge. I think the other side of COVID was we had to do certain things to make our business work, including when we did want to push to have fans in our stands back in 2021 to reopen the ballpark. We had to gather everyone's plans. You had to communicate. You had to collaborate because we had to get league and government approval to open our ballpark. In postseason of 2020, we ended up actually opening up the ballpark for small groups to come and buy pods on the field. And everyone was kind of spaced out on the field to watch postseason on the screen. In order for us to do that, we had to build very documented plans of every single specific aspect of that operation to get approval. So there are some things that COVID actually forced us to utilize this culture of collaborating and communicating and sharing common documents that worked in our favor. But there's definitely a challenge in that. And it comes with time, honestly.
Some of the toughest conversations we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. We can convince ourselves to believe stories that we don't even know are true. What's crazy is we allow that story to take a toll on our confidence. Have you been there before? I know that I have. We get in our heads. We beat ourselves up. Here's some tough love. Nobody's got time for that. We are high achieving women who have big career goals. We don't have time to get in our own way. And I am here to support you with my new one-on-one coaching program, Step Into Your Power and Own Your Career. My clients have told me that when we work together, I've helped them get out of their own way, regain their confidence, learn how to manage their emotion and mindset. They've told me that they've been able to get their voice back and use it with confidence. The most important thing, they told me that we've identified the obstacle that was getting in their way. If you want to learn more about this program, scroll down in the show notes, click on the link that says Step into Your Power and Own Your Career. You can set up time to chat with me and we can figure out if this is the right program for what you need. All right, let's get back to the episode. So you didn't, nobody had all the answers during COVID.
No.
So you didn't have all the answers. You started a new role within your organization. And a week later, everything was different, and new, nobody knew how to navigate it. So not only are you starting a new role, which is sometimes, I don't know about you and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that can be nerve-wracking a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. That could be a little scary because you want to do well. And it's especially if it's a brand new role with no playbook, right? So it's
no playbook,
you are,
no understanding of it.
Yeah, right. So you're starting from scratch and there's so many components and factors that go into that, including influencing others. And like you said, creating that culture of collaboration, and especially with this new role. So now thinking about all that and thinking about COVID and not having all the answers, how did you lean on your boss? And I think what I'm getting at here is it's hard to admit to your boss, or it's hard for people to admit to anybody that they don't have all the answers. And we don't. And once we do realize that, and it's okay, you end up going further in your career. That's just my personal opinion. Once you admit that you don't have all the answers and realize that, and then seek to understand and seek to get them from other people, it makes things a lot easier. So were you nervous about telling your boss, Hannah, I don't know what to do here, or can we talk through this? I don't have the answer. How did you, what was your approach, and were you nervous?
Yeah, of course I was nervous, right? Hannah sees an opportunity for adding value to our whole entire organization of bringing in a project manager who will support organizational departmental projects, add value. Again, no playbook there. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to learn at the same time as I'm trying to build something. So definitely it's nerve-wracking. I also think I had to get to the point where I had to be transparent and honest of just saying, hey, I do not know where to take this. I don't know what my next step should be here. My approach to that has always been, I'm not going to come and ask for help with my hands completely tied. I'm going to come and I'm going to have some ideas and I'm going to try and put some effort into, here's my thoughts on a strategy. Do you think that's best? Is there a better way I should be looking at this? And I'm also someone who might be a little bit of my anxiety at times, but I'm always going to look at a situation and I'm going to say, ooh, could I have done that better? And I think that's part of how I've learned too is, hey, Hannah, here's how I handled this. I don't love the way I did that. After going through X, Y, and Z, I think I could have done this. What are your thoughts? How would have you handled yourself in that situation? And just
wait a second.
Transparent dialogue.
I am totally cutting you off. I'm sorry. So
no, please.
You tracked things that didn't go well. I hope you tracked your wins too, but that's another story. But you tracked what wasn't going well. And then you said, okay, this is how I would handle it differently in the future. And not only did you do that for yourself, you also you did it for yourself and had that conversation with yourself, but then also got feedback from your boss. Is that
absolutely? I will, any situation I'm in, work, personal, anything, I'm looking at myself first. I look inward, probably a little too harsh on myself. And I say, oh, how could I have done that better? How could I have elevated that? How could I have been a little more confident in that meeting? How could I have closed that meeting out with a little more definition? Whatever the case is, I'm always looking inward of how I can make everything better, but I'm also going to seek guidance when it is a situation that I would love input on, right? And then I think that's not just, to be clear too, it's not just with Hannah, my direct boss, it's even stakeholders that I'm in projects with. That's part of building a team. And in my opinion on a project is, hey, how do you think that meeting went? How else could we improve these meetings? And making everyone feel like they're not just bought in on what the end product is of a project, but they're bought in on the process of how we're doing our work, how we're communicating. That's part of how I look at my day-to-day job here.
Wow. So you're going to key stakeholders as well. And I'm picturing this, right? You're in a position of, I don't know if power is the right word, but maybe it is because it's your project, right? Like it's everyone's project, but you're held accountable.
I'm held accountable.
When things don't go well, right? When all the stakeholders
Sure.
don't pull their weight, it's you who's held accountable. So you're in this position, and this very unique position. And then you're going to the key stakeholders and asking them, how'd that go? Did that work well for you? That meeting that I just had, what would you add, change, or delete? You're being vulnerable with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's a critical piece of success. And that's also not something I was doing right off the bat, right? That came after I've been in this role for over 2 years now as a project manager in an organization. I've worked with almost every single department in our organization. I would say I've worked with every single department off the top of my head. I wasn't doing that in 2020. I wasn't saying, hey, how could we do that better? I was just trying to get my feet under me, in all honesty. But as I grew more confident in my role, I was able to say, hey, let's talk. What can make this project better? Hey, we just wrapped up this project. I'm really big on like lessons learned, retrospectives at the end of projects. It's really important to me in my role. I want to close something out, but part of that process is understanding how we can influence the project planning process, the project execution process, whatever that is. And I keep all of those documents so that we can say, hey, next time we go into a similar project, here's some past things that we learned. Do you remember that? Do you have anything to add? Like, what else can we build into this project plan before we start? It definitely was not off the bat. That's come with time for sure, but it is part of building the best project culture that you can and being a good project manager. It's not my world. And it really, this work usually doesn't benefit me. I'm usually a project manager for work that benefits another department. So I'm always going, I'm like, hey, y'all, reminder, I don't have a dog in this fight. This is your end product. Let's reset. Let's go back to our goals. Let's talk about what y'all need at the end of this.
Yeah.
How do we get there? There's a lot of resetting that goes on sometimes, but you always point back to, what did we want this to be? How are we going to get there? We can adapt our process along the way for sure. That's part of it. I think that's the most critical piece of my job, is being able to be adaptable to what's in front of us and what's the next fire, right? And how do we prioritize something? It's a really key part of my role.
Yeah. I mean, you're really flying the plane while it's being built.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And just being really open and honest with everybody, like who has a part in it and who has a role in it. And gosh, I mean, when you think about it, so you started this role in March of 2020. We all know what happened. So that was a huge world event, a huge global event. And then you also went through this in postseason, and then at a World Series went on top of it. You've had some those things don't happen every year. Let's just hope that pandemics don't happen every year. And then World Series, we all know, don't happen every single year. You're not there. Like, so those are huge events during your new role.
For sure. And I'll also say, alongside of like these huge events, I was also taking time outside of here to learn I took a lot of project management classes. I took a lot of courses. I was trying to learn the top skills, the best. So what's the general project management framework, right? I had no formal education before I stepped into this role in project management. So I'm also alongside trying to understand the real technical world of what I'm doing and learning valuable skills and tools to put in my toolbox so that I can come here and be a better project manager. And there's people who have done this for their entire career. I'm 2 years in and I learn something every single day. And I think that's also part of it, is just being like, I don't know, to your earlier point, like, I don't know what I'm doing all the time. Yeah. I'm doing the best I can with the best intentions. And I'm going to continue to get better and better every single day.
And with that sort of attitude and philosophy, I mean, it's working, right? If you look at your resume on paper, not that you have one, right? You've been at the same organization. I don't know if you have a resume, but like when you look at it, it's like you started 5-6 years ago, and now you're a project manager in a brand new role for all of guest operations and strategy. Like that's a huge jump.
I'm extremely passionate about what I do, because I see value in it. It's been 2 years it's fun now to watch other people, not just in our own department. I support projects in our whole organization now, but it's really fun when a different department head comes to me and says, hey, I have a project for you. I want to frame this up. I want to work with you on this. Yes. And that has been so cool and rewarding for me, just to see how other people's excitement about this type of work has grown over the last 2 years. And it does take time. You have to put in effort. You have to build those relationships. You have to have those conversations, and you have to really make the time to say, hey, what are some of your goals in your area of the business? Because here are some of my goals of what I want to do in the next couple of years with this type of work. Like, how do we collaborate? And that goes back to the relationship side of our culture. And it's been fundamental for growing my role across our organization. I didn't just sit here and projects came to me. You have to be proactive about what you're trying to do and how you can support other people in the organization.
I'm going to put that in the bucket of that was you branding yourself.
Yes.
Right.
And
like, I don't think you woke up one day and said, I need to have a brand and brand myself, but that's what you were doing, right? Like you were building that brand of collaboration and project management and showing people how there's a new way to do things and it can benefit you because it's like you said, it's not me. This work is not for me. It's for you. I can help you.
Yes. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time, right? You're just trying to say like, here's some goals. I'm a very goal-driven individual. That's what motivates me. So I know what I want to be able to do in this type of work. And I see the value. So I was just so passionate about showing it to other people. And that's exactly what I was doing the entire time. I also think the other side of it is, yes, you have to get buy-in, you have to brand yourself, you have to bring awareness to the type of work you're doing. But the other important part that I've learned lately, again, this has all been through trial and error and learning, but it's the closeout and how you start documenting. I've always kept like a Word document of just wins, right? What are career wins? And it's funny when you go back and you see when I started, what was a win for me? And I celebrated that win. And now to see what type of wins you're at now, it's really cool to look at. But even the way I close out a project and document project success, that at times that can just be another thing to do. Oh, I got to take an hour and I got to build a deck on, here's a project we closed out. Here's some of the success tied to it. We're documenting it. But that's such a critical piece of, I would also maybe say that's branding yourself. It's branding the work. I look at it, it's branding the value of what I'm doing. So part of me advocating for the work I'm doing is by taking the time of formally really closing something out, packaging out stuff nicely. Right now, obviously, we're coming to the end of the year. What I'm working on is wrapping up. Here's what I did in 2022. Here's all of the projects we supported. Here's the value that they brought. It's another thing to do when we're all busy, but there's so much value in that type of work. So that's also something I've learned more so in the last year that's started to be a really big focus of mine.
I love what you said. I wrote this down, branding the work that you do. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to brand me. Like, I don't want to brand myself. I'm not the brand. It has nothing to do with me. And I love what you just said. And I'm totally going to steal it. I'm sorry, Mary Elizabeth, but it's branding the work that you're doing. And it has nothing to do with you. It's more about how you're helping the organization, how you are bringing value and being able to show that value through at the end of the year. Everyone forgets what happened. Like, look at all this work that we did and look at the impact it had on the organization. Look at the impact it had on our staff. Look at the impact it had on ROI, like all the insert whatever, goals that your organization has there. And I'm sure you tie it all back to that.
Absolutely.
I love that. And I swear everybody, I did not pay her to say that she tracks her wins. Everyone knows that I find that to be very important. And I did not pay her to say that she also tracks what she could do differently next time as well. So I swear I didn't pay her to say that, but I love those things. How does it make you, let me end with this question. How does it make you feel when you look back at your wins or you look back at ways you can do things differently?
Oh, I think that's almost two separate answers for me. I'm sorry. I think the win, I love going back like once a year and seeing in 2016 when I was just starting my career, what was a win? And I celebrated, the small wins, and doing payroll for a team of 150 for the first time was like such a huge accomplishment, right? And now we're working on all sorts of other crazy systems that back then it was super manual, and being able to like just create my own little process to make that what a win for me then. And I love to look back and say, like, I'm so proud of who I was then, and now to look at what's the difference in a win for me now, and just to see the growth there. I have a terrible memory, so it's been a great like mental jog for me too, of just here's all these things I've done in my career, and I never would remember, I think, of half of them off the top of my head, right? So it's really fun just to go through that and see your growth over the years. I think that's something I wish I did more often. I probably look at that once a year and look through the whole thing, but I do wish I spent more time when I'm having a bad day. That's probably what I need to do to give myself some motivation, remind myself where I've come from.
I think that's okay. So you put in your wins more than once a year, but you spend time reflecting once a year. And I think that's fair. And I think I always say monthly, and it's hard to do, but like at least if you're always tracking, and then once a year you can reflect on everything and look how far you've come. Because you like look back, you're like, oh, 2016, this was a win. 2022, like look at this one, look at the growth in my career. I have to imagine that impacts your confidence in yourself.
It does, right? And I think, confidence is always hard because your goal and my goal in my career is every single day I'm taking a new challenge, and every single day I'm growing more, right? Yeah. So you want your confidence to grow with you, right? But if you are taking on a new challenge, there's a lot of unknown there, right? So it's good to look back and say, okay, all of those at that time were unknowns. Yeah. And now I'm more confident in being able to do X, Y, and Z. So knowing that confidence will come too when you start moving the next big rock, the next big challenge, right? Yeah. And just remember where you came from. You had a second question.
I like to pack like 40 things in one question. The second one was, how do you use those? How does the, tracking what you would do differently next time? How does that impact you?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. I do it on a personal side. Like I know we talked about like even just having those conversations with whether that's my boss, whether that's key stakeholders in a project, or whether that's an entire project team at the end of a project saying, what didn't go well? And I think sometimes people think of it as a negative. What didn't go well here? So I don't love going into a meeting and saying, all right, everyone go around the room. What went well, what didn't? Sure. There's ways you can do that, right? So a lot of our projects, we do in a project survey to track some of that stuff. And then by the time we're coming into a room, we already know where there's opportunities. So you facilitate the conversation around, we know here's all of the lessons learned. Here are the ones we're going to focus on. Here's where we feel like we can impact change. Here's where we can drive change versus sitting around and it being for event session.
Yes. Yeah.
So being able to even like control the culture of we want to leave that project with a nice, pretty bow and everyone being like, great, that was wonderful. Not like we just dumped all the problems. So I think that's also the way I want to look at it myself too, is if I'm looking at how I did something, I could have handled that way better. Here's how I'll handle it next time. Here's kind of my thoughts on how I would talk to that person, how I would answer that question, how I would be more confident in that meeting, whatever the situation is. But here's what I did well too. Here's what I think I did. I always try to tie in some sort of positive with those things, because I do think it's just, we're all very hard on ourselves. So wherever you can show yourself any sort of grace. And I come back to every single day I'm having a rough day here, or it seems like every project's on fire. I go back to, all right, where did I start with this 2 years ago? Look how much this work has changed in 2 years. Look how much more confident I am in myself as a project manager in 2 years. Yeah. You just have to tie it back to that.
Yes. And I think
that really answered your question.
No, but you did. And it's my job to kind of pull those things out, like those themes that I'm hearing that are emerging when you're talking. And it's all boiling down to what I'm hearing is confidence. It's those two exercises that you do, tracking wins and things you can do differently or things you can do better moving forward, all impact how you do business and how you grow. And how you really, it keeps coming back to, as you're talking about it, I hear it just builds that confidence and you need that because as you grow and as the higher up you go, the harder it gets to navigate all the complexities of just business.
Absolutely. And I have a quote that's on my board right here. That's one of the first things I see every single day when I walk in my office. It's from the book Atomic Habits. And it says, every chance you make, big or small, is a vote for the person you want to become. And I really think that's the way I try to tackle my work and the way I tackle everything that you walk into work and you never know what's going to hit you, right? Every single opportunity, every single question, every single meeting, every single thing that you're doing, the way you respond, it's just a vote for how you want to grow. So that's what I try to guide myself by too.
Yes. I think that quote is
thoughtful.
Yes. That quote is perfect. Like, I wish that I could see it because I would have said it like during it. Like it really sums up perfectly everything that you've been saying and talking about. So you really are living by that quote. It's
I
impacting
try. I
you.
really do. I think the way you respond to everything put in front of you is, and everyone, we all have bad days. We all have, sometimes I wish I would have handled that differently, right? But
Yep.
every
Yeah.
single thing that's presented to you, I remember like, okay, how am I going to respond to this? What am I trying to do here? What are our goals? What's the right way to steer this? It goes back to advocating for the work that I'm doing. And when I'm faced with challenges, that's how I try to be thoughtful in my approach and in my response.
All right, we got into it. I mean, we went deep there, and I loved every minute of this conversation. Now, my question for you is: are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Sure. Yes.
I swear it's even easier. All right, so 12 questions. First thing that comes to mind. First one: what is your favorite sports moment?
Oh, I mean, this one's last year was unreal for me. Just being able to win the World Series as a team,
Yes.
and we were completely delirious by the time we won. I think I slept like 5 hours in 4 days, but it's the most unreal, surreal feeling. So I'm not going to say it was like when we won, because that you're just in a daze, but the parade a couple of days after and seeing all of Atlanta show up in the streets of downtown Atlanta and then over by our ballpark. That's when it really hit us that we were like, oh my gosh, we actually won this. It was an incredible experience. It just is it's a once in a lifetime type of feeling. There's nothing that you can explain.
100% agree. Did the parade bring tears to your eyes?
Yes, for sure.
Same. I mean, I just remember that moment, and I just remember like turning the corner and going out to the streets. We were on duck boats, and like that feeling of like the I don't like, I literally have the chills. Like I will never forget that moment.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. It's an incredible feeling. And I do feel like very lucky that both of us have gone through that. Like it's very honored.
I'm so honored. And it's a good reminder of like what sports really do to people. And sometimes you're just in it. Like by the time when we won the World Series, you're just kind of there and almost a zombie because you've worked all of October. Yeah. But you just get to see these people and the way that they care. And you just realize like, this is meaningful to so many people. It's a crazy experience.
Oh, it sure is. Whew. Okay. What is something people always get wrong about you?
I think I can be a little more bold than people would think.
Okay. Yes, I can see that.
And I think a lot of people think I would be a little more of a pushover than I am.
Yeah.
I'm standing up for myself or standing up for the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You and your boss, Hannah. I hate the word boss. We really need a new word. But anyway, you guys are very similar in that regard. And you both are badass women for real.
Thank you.
What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Oh, gosh. It's even
harder. Is it tough right now because you're expecting a baby? Yeah,
that's what
is that why?
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm like, I don't know. Food or drink?
It could be either. How about that?
I feel coffee though, honestly, in any stage of my life, coffee.
Okay, fair. All right. Yeah. Are you a morning or night person?
I'm usually honestly both a little bit. I'm one of those people, other than not being pregnant, I don't require a lot of sleep. So I do love being able to wake up early. I do my best work in the mornings, but I can also be super productive at night. So I'm not.
Oh, yeah. Lucky. All right.
That came with working in baseball though. I probably trained myself to be productive at night.
Yeah. I couldn't do it 15 years and I'm still not a night person. Okay. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Dog or cat person?
Dog. I have two.
Oh, I know. I see a picture of one over here.
Yeah. I'm allergic to cats, but I like cats too.
What product would you stockpile if you knew they weren't going to sell it anymore?
You know, you're going to love my answer. The Noon hydration tabs.
Oh, yay. That's fun.
I drink like 5 a day now.
That's so funny. I don't think you're supposed to go over 6, or is it 4? You should look that up. So Mary, I'll share with everybody. We worked not World Series, All-Star, MLB All-Star together, and we both suffer from dehydration. Like we just get dehydrated all the time. And Mary Elizabeth is expecting. So we were talking about different tools, and I shared some of my favorite with her. Literally gave her, I was like, you need to use these. They're amazing. And those, I literally have one right now. Like I said
the right word, right, Jahaan?
Yeah. Yeah. I call them Noon. It's Nuun. I always say
okay.
Noon.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Because when I say none, that sounds weird. So I just call them Noon.
Noon. Okay. That's what I thought. All right.
Yeah. So hopefully we're both right. I will link to those in the show notes, especially those of you who get dehydrated easily. Also, if you don't get dehydrated easily, but you had a night and we all know what I mean, and you need a little hydration, those also help. Yes. All right. What is your favorite app?
Ooh, my favorite app, the reminders or to-do list app on iPhone. I literally live my entire life out of it. Reminders app. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
That is a good one. I schedule things, I time things. I live my life off of that app.
Yeah. You were a total project manager. Okay. Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram?
I only have an Instagram out of the three.
So. Yeah. Same. Who's your biggest inspiration in life?
Such a tough one. I have a lot of inspirations, but I would think it boils down to my mother.
As a child, what did you want to become when you grew up?
An elementary school teacher.
Oh, that tracks. I totally see that.
Thank you. I didn't think I'd have the patience for it.
Finish this sentence. This is the last question. Finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
The future of women working in sports is just getting started.
Yes. Mary Elizabeth, this has been so much fun. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they go about doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get in touch with me would be my work email. It's maryelizabeth.cox@braves.com. Definitely not LinkedIn. I check that as often as I can, but you'll get an email response quicker.
There we go. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram @Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.